Hello, everybody. I'm glad you could join me. This is the very first live Q&A with the paint professor, John Peak. And what I like to call this is Paint Like a Pro with Professor Peak of Peak Brothers Painting. Hey, I really appreciate those of you who signed up and those of you who sent questions ahead of time. And so we've got a few topics here to talk about. So glad you're here. So the first one came from a longtime commercial designer here in town who I've worked for. And her first question was, how much life can you get out of a south-facing redwood deck? Well, the answer to that question is, it depends on a few issues. You've given me the fact that it's a south-facing deck, so I'm assuming it's getting full sun. If it's getting full sun and there's a lot of traffic, then you're probably going to get 18 months to 2 years out of it. Now, also important to think about there is whether this deck has a finish on it or not, and then what type of finish it has. So I hope during this time together, as we discuss these various questions that have come through, what might be the best type of finish for you to have on your deck, if any, because it does depend on the type of wood you have. It depends on the look that you like to have and the type of finish that you're going to put on it. One of my clients is a well-known doctor here in town, works up at the University of California, San Diego, and we did some painting for them, and he was so kind. He sent in a question as well, because he had heard about bare stains being absolutely the best according to Consumer Reports. Well, I hate to pop your bubble, but many times the Consumer Reports doesn't take into consideration the whole situation involved with the deck. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to go over here and see if I can screen share with you here we go. Now this is I hope you can see this. This is a deck that we have. It's an epay deck. Now, talking about different types of wood, epay is an extremely hard tropical wood that can be left to go natural, left to go silver. If you look up in the upper left of this picture, you're going to see an area where the deck was covered by the base of an umbrella, so it's in perfect condition. So these folks in this situation like to keep their deck looking perfect. So they called us in, and you go, what is the best way to prepare a deck was another question I had. A lot of people will water blast. There are chemicals available. Well, in a situation like this where the wood is grayed but really doesn't have much of a finish on it, there's two ways to go about it. You can chemically rinse this down with an oxalic acid-based bleach, which will brighten the wood up, and then give it a light scrub to finish it off. What I decided to do in this situation was to actually sand the deck. So what we do here, I'm going to run over to my other sheet here. One moment here. And so here we are. Here's the deck. And what we did is we used a floor sander that we rented from the local rental yard, sanded the deck down, and then put on what is called Sikkens SRD, which stands for siding, railing, and deck. That's an oil-based finish. Now, to go back to the question about the bare product, the question the doctor had, I hope you can see this clearly, but this is a deck that was finished with the bare product. The problem with it is it's a film forming acrylic. Now, what happens over time is it wears out in certain areas And in other areas, it's in perfect condition. So what do you do to refinish the deck? Well, in this case, the only way to refinish this deck and make it look even again would be to completely sand it down, to strip it completely. And with a deck like this Ipe, if we can get to it within 2 years, we will not have to sand this deck or really do much prep at all. We'll just oil over it. Well, so Consumer Reports says, well, the Behr product lasts 5 years. Well, what do you have to do at the end of that 5 years to refinish the deck? In the case of this deck, complete sanding, complete stripping, and then putting it down again. So what I tell people is for the average cost for the service life of a job is to go with a penetrating oil finish. It's a lower cost per year of service, and it does keep this beautiful translucent look where you can see the wood grain underneath. Whereas in this case, what I see a lot of homeowners doing is just going over this deck again with the same finish. So it ends up getting blotchy like this, dark in some areas, like right here, if you see my cursor, and lighter in other areas. So in this case, what we did for this client of mine up in Del Mar is we stripped this deck, sanded it down smooth, and then refinished with a penetrating oil. You know, it's the same thing with patio furniture. Here's some teak patio furniture, and the lady had gotten a little tired of the gray look that you see here and wanted it to have more of a finished look like the deck. So we did the same Sikkens product, oil-based for sure, for the best longevity and ease of refinishing. This is before finishing, this is stripped with one coat, and this is with the second coat on the left, the little table there. And so that's how we do that. So let's see, any other questions? Let's see. Oh, we asked, I had questions about the translucent finishes, solid body finishes, and film forming varnish style finishes. And what are the pros and cons of those? Okay, well, we talked a little bit about the deck, the Behr deck finish that is semi or transparent. And that's the one that I try to avoid because it gets blotchy when you try to refinish it, and you do have to sand it down. So what in a translucent finish works much better is the oil-based products. Okay, and to get to the level where you can put an oil-based product on again, you do need to have the deck stripped down completely. But once you've got the oil on there, and it's aged a few years, and it's a little weathered in some areas and not others, as long as there's no grade wood, you do have to get rid of that. As long as it's fairly clean and even, you can just put a coat of the oil on, the translucent oil, and it'll look perfect again. It evens out very nicely, whereas the acrylics do not. Well, now, in the solid body finishes, there are oil-based products and water-based products as well. Now, if your deck is, some people have Douglas fir or cedar decks, and people ask me, do I have to put a finish on them? And I go, yeah, you pretty much have to. Those woods have a tendency to split and open up and really get ratty looking if you don't keep them oiled or with a solid body finish on them. Ipe, you can let go gray. Teak, of course, you can let go gray. But to get back to the solid body finishes, that's an interesting question. The solid body finishes, if you're building a deck from scratch, there is an oil-based product out there called Rub-All. Why they call it Rub-All, I don't know, but it's made by the same people who make the Cetol SRD oil finish that you see here. The Rub-All is a solid body finish, but you put it on all 6 sides of the wood. That's top, bottom, edges, and the cut edges. And then you install it. Extremely durable stuff. After that, about every 5 to 6 years, you would recoat it, and you'd have a beautiful, long-lasting finish there. That's the premium stuff. Well, the next one down, if you're going solid body, then the Behr product actually works quite well. We like to get the surface nice and clean, probably sanding it down, and then you can either go directly over it with the Behr product, or you can prime it with, there's some specialty primers available. I like to use a lot of Antico mildew sealer. Although you don't have the mildew problem on the deck, it is the most penetrating, amazing primer I know of. Then put a couple of coats of Behr solid body on top, and you're gonna have a gorgeous finish. Okay, so we're gonna go back over to me. I think you're seeing me now. Now I have another question. I'm gonna pop over to my Facebook here and just check in with you all to see if I have any questions or comments. Okay. All right, just some good lucks. All right, well, thanks for that. I appreciate it. So I am gonna go back over to, this is all new to me. I'm doing all my own technical stuff here too. So next question is, one of my clients emailed me and asked, I've got fading cabinets. Didn't clarify to me what she's got on her cabinets, but I'm assuming it's a stained finish. So in a situation like that, the lowest cost thing that you can do as a homeowner is get some Scott's liquid gold. That's like Scott's lawn care. I don't think it's the same people, but Scott's liquid gold is a petroleum-based, almost like a waxy oil. And if you wipe down your cabinets with that, it penetrates into scratches and worn areas, and it also takes off the, you know, where the hand oils get around your knobs, and it kind of discolors the finish and actually can get a little blackish. That's just hand oils, and they can act as a stripper on stained cabinets. So what you do is the Scott's liquid gold will get that grease off, and it'll also penetrate into the wood. And if it doesn't even out the color completely, at least you know, my God, that looks a whole lot better, and the wood is protected. So Scott's liquid gold is a great way to do that. Now, if you want to go to where you get your cabinets looking like new again, it could be that what needs to be done is they need to, of course, get completely cleaned and then deglossed. And then here's the fun part. You can either put clear back over it, and that oftentimes will even out the color. But if you wanted to change the color, especially if you want to go a little bit darker, say you've got natural wood oak cabinets, and you want to make them look a little more updated, which would be maybe cherry or a walnut look. That's what we can do very easily by staining the cabinets. And if the color doesn't quite get to where you want, we can actually add pigments, stain pigments, to the clear that we're putting on the cabinet, so that coat, you know, we put a coat on, let it dry, and look at it, and then we can put another coat on there and bring that color to just where you want it, to that deep, rich, new color. And then we put clear over the top of that to protect it, and then you've got a new kitchen for a whole lot less than replacing all your cabinets. So that's how we would fix something like that. Now, just to show you, there are water-based products that we use for exactly that, for refinishing cabinets. Sin is one of them. This is a company out of Canada that makes a really hard, clear finish that we can tint and shade cabinets up to where we want them. This particular product we can use outside too. We use these on some mahogany windows. And it was 1 year ago, and I met with a client just, about 3 weeks ago. We went over the entire house, and even the hardest south exposure and the west exposure, which is right at Windansea Beach, look perfect. So I'm real pleased with that product. There's also, Sikkens makes some interesting oil-based products. This is Cetol 23 Plus, which we oftentimes will use on front doors and sometimes on cabinets as well. But this is more of an outside product. And just so you can see it, I talked earlier on the decks about what to use on the decks for a penetrating oil finish that's translucent. Let's just see the wood in. This is Prolux made by Sikkens, called SRD, siding, railing, and deck. I know it's hard for you to see that, but there we go. If you have any questions, I can fill you in on that. Just email me and I'll give you all the information to put you to sleep by tonight. Okay? So let's see. Next question is, can you water blast your deck? Yes, yeah, but very carefully. You know, it's a lot of fun to get a water blaster and go at your deck, and you can do a whole lot of damage with a water blaster. Believe me, I know. Better is to use if you're trying to get an old finish off, better to sand it or chemically strip it. There are water-based chemical strippers that you can lay on there and let sit, and then water blast them off. It's best not to use a water blaster to do what a sander or a stripper could do. It's really more for rinsing. So can you water blast a deck and stain? The answer is maybe. So if the deck is in pretty good shape and it's an Ipe deck, even with those, I've gotten some damage when we've tried to water blast a little too hard without using chemicals. You get, here's the surface of the wood, and you can get a little feathering like that, and then you're going to have to sand it anyway. So I found with Ipe decks and even some redwood decks, it's better just to go rent a commercial square sander. You get sheets of sandpaper that are about this big, and it goes under what looks like a floor polisher, only it has a square on the bottom, and the square doesn't turn, it just vibrates, and man, it just works it down. And the cool thing about the deck is oftentimes when it hasn't been well cared for, it's fairly uneven. You've got boards that are up and down and cupped and all. That sander will even things out. But I want you to remember something now. Before you start with that sander, get a hammer out, or if they're screwed in, pound down or screw down any proud fasteners. A proud fastener is here's the wood, there's the screw or the nail. You go over that with your sander and you're going to ruin a piece of sandpaper. So make sure everything gets knocked down, okay? And any mars that you put in the wood will get sanded out anyway, so don't worry about putting a little pucker in the deck with your hammer. So let's see. The next question we had was, we have a client who wants her baseboards retouched after removal and installing. There are marks and gashes from being pulled out. Well, it will depend on the amount that you have of the baseboards and whether they're made of MDF. That's a wood product that's called medium density fiberboard. See if I have a sample of it here. A lot of crown molding and baseboards are made of this product. It's basically a press board. Here's a piece of crown that is, the nice thing about this is that it's absolutely flawless, this MDF. The drawback to MDF is that it's very difficult to repair once the dog has chewed on the corner or the kids have roller skated in the house and dinged the edge. It doesn't repair very easily. So for crown molding, it's really nice stuff. For baseboards, especially in kitchens and baths where things can get wet, it's not a good choice because water will migrate through an unprimed edge. See, it's primed part of the way, but let's say this was a baseboard sitting on the floor and water got on the floor, it puckers this all up. You've probably seen that in bathrooms and kitchens and homes you've been in. So it's a good idea to have wood baseboards, especially in areas that can get wet, like a kitchen, bathroom, laundry, okay? There's a crown and all, this is perfectly fine for a painted finish. You can also get kind of a stained look with this too. You can paint this, say a light brown, and then basically antique it with a darker brown, and you can get what looks like wood with this. And this is oh gosh, it's only $1.22 a linear foot, whereas a foot of this in cherry would be $8 a linear foot. A lot of money. So to answer a question about how to finish something like that, I would say if it's a small area, it might be best, with MDF anyway, to just replace it and pre-paint the baseboard before you put it down. The reason you want to pre-paint a piece of baseboard, I'm using the crown again, is that if you have a hard surface here, like a wood floor or stone or something like that, you're always going to have a problem with paint, if you're painting the baseboard in place, leaching down onto the floor. And I can go over how to do that maybe in a different Q&A, but that's a technique we painters use, is to pre-paint these ahead of time, then set them down, do our filling and caulking along the top, and then touching up. That's a better way to do it. So, but if they've already been installed, they're MDF, and they need to get touched up, the best way to do that is patience, a little spackle, some good tape, and that's all I got to say about that. If they're wood stained baseboards, there are different ways to approach that. If there's just a few mars here and there, and of course there will be nail heads from reattaching them, I have what's called a Mohawk touch-up kit. The Mohawk Finishing Company specializes in fine finishing for cabinets, furniture restoration people and all. Well, I've compiled a kit that has little marking pens that are basically stain pens of about 20 different colors. So I can fill a nail head with wood putty, sand it down, and then feather in with what looks like a felt tip pen, but it's really a stain finish. Same thing with filling a scratch. If you have a deep scratch in a very noticeable area, you can fill it with wood putty and touch it up with those sticks that I talk about. I had an interesting situation that has kind of applies here. I had a customer with a maple floor on a maple stairway. Their stairs, the risers were painted, but the stairs themselves were beautiful, beautiful maple. Well, on the landing, they had a big area of wood, and there was this deep gouge in it. And she asked me, what can we do to fix that? Well, without ruining the finish that's there, the one thing you can do, if you strip the floor, you can steam it. You can steam that gouge if it's a compression gouge, and the steam will cause the wood to open up and expand and flush out. We didn't have that ability to do that on this particular job. So what I got from the Mohawk people was a very interesting filler stick. It's made of a type of plastic that those of you who used to fill up the bottom of your skis with the P-Tex and you let it drip on fire, that's not quite the same thing, but you take a stick of approximately the color that you're dealing with the floor, and you heat it with what looks like a little soldering iron and feather it into the hole, then sand it out. And that's how you can deal with a situation like that, say in a piece of furniture or on a floor. Someone like we're talking about here on the baseboards. But strictly with baseboards, I would say that getting the, at Home Depot, you can do this yourself. You can get the Minwax sticks, and they sell those sticks that are, they're little filler sticks. They're almost like crayons, and you can rub them in there, and that'll fill the hole. But if it's a scratch where it's just discolored, then you can use a Minwax stick to just draw on the color in that area. And that'll oftentimes take care of a wood stained or a stained baseboard that's become damaged. Okay, so the last question I have, shoot, we're down to 4 minutes. The last question I have comes from my designer friend who says, What do you recommend for painting concrete block walls? Should you cover them with stucco first, then paint? Okay, good question. If you are planning on stuccoing your block wall, don't have anything on that block wall that might cause the stucco not to stick. If you're going to stucco it, don't put anything on it. It should be raw cement block. Then the stucco will stick well to it. Then the question is, should you paint that stucco? I always get the question, should I paint my stucco? Well, it depends. If it's a block wall that has dirt behind it, so here's a block wall, here's a driveway, here's dirt up to here on a block wall, and there's all kinds of plants in here that are getting lots of water. There is what we call hydrostatic pressure beneath the grade of dirt here, trying to push through this wall. And what happens is that water has to get through, and it does push through. And it can cause delamination of the stucco in various areas where that wall was not properly waterproofed. I see it all the time. So in a case like that, people have a damaged wall. And I say, if you want to keep it looking nice, what we could do is patch that stucco, and it's not going to match because it's a patch. Even if you use the bag of original stucco, it's not going to match. It just doesn't. So what we do is we paint that wall, and then when the stucco fails because of the water migrating through the wall, it sometimes won't take, 5-6 months. Sometimes it takes years. But when it happens, you've got a painted surface that, if you've used good acrylic paint, will not have faded at all. So you can patch that one area that's damaged and paint over that one area, and it'll disappear. So I have clients like that have driveways and things where they have these beautiful walls, and there's just certain areas where the waterproofing on the dirt side of the wall is given out, and the water keeps damaging that area. Sometimes only every 3 years I go by and I just patch up a certain area and touch it up, and the wall looks brand new. So I hope that answers your question on that. And as far as that goes, I so much appreciate you all coming here. This is a great time together, and I like to pontificate and be the professor of paint. So tell your friends. The next time I'll be doing this is probably in about a month, so you'll get an email about it. And I'd love for you to share it with your friends and send in your questions, because I've got 34 years of experience, and I love to share it with friends and family. Take care. Bye-bye.